Welcome to the Broken Worship Podcast. The intro song you just heard was from Rebuild the Fallen, the song Need to Feel. My name is Zach Mitchell. I have been in the Sioux Falls art and music community for over 10 years, starting as a vocalist in Rebuild the Fallen and then venturing into spoken word poetry. I have had the opportunity to meet a variety of people in the Sioux Falls art and music community. I am starting this podcast to help launch the Broken Worship Ministry. As much as I love writing, which is in no way coming to an end, I just think there's so much more that I can do with broken worship. Broken worship has always been about, even in our brokenness, we have a reason to worship. Broken worship is something different. It's something genuine, unfiltered, and raw. It doesn't paint Christianity as a pretty picture. Even through life's hardest shit, God is still there, and He still loves us. Even when we fuck up so much and so deep that it feels like there's no way out, we have a Jesus that has been there for us. A Jesus that took our pain so that we don't have to eternally pay for our mistakes. Broken worship is not churchy. It's not a place to judge. It's a place where we can walk hand in hand through life's hardest shit and be there for each other. Broken worship is not to be preachy, but to share the love of Christ through relationships. Jesus did come to save the world and humanity, but He spent the majority of His ministry with a small group of guys that He lived with, traveled with, and spoke into their lives. We can't pretend that we can spread the love of Christ and with someone without building a relationship with them, listening to them, spending time with them, and loving them. I would like to introduce my first guest on this podcast, Taylor Broberg.
Hey man, I am super stoked to be here today.
Glad to have you here, man. Taylor has been a lifelong friend of mine. We have talked about faith, shared music with each other, nerded out with anime, and drank a whole bunch.
Quite a bit.
Attack on Titan, right, man?
Yeah, dude, for real. Oh my gosh, the feels, man.
Yeah. Taylor was the third founding member of Rebuild the Fallen. Welcome to the show, Taylor, and thank you for helping me make this possible by setting up this Chromebook and microphone for me.
Oh man, I'm glad it worked as well for me as it did for you, and the microphone is beautiful, by the way.
It's awesome. I love it. Definitely not a bad purchase.
For sure.
So, Taylor, I have a few questions for you, if that's all right.
Yeah, dude, no problem. Let me know. Let's go.
Okay. So the first one's kind of general, but hopefully you like it. What does broken worship mean to you?
Oh, let's see. Oh, we already did one take, and I feel like I kind of flopped this last time. So I'm kind of interested to say, broken worship to me means a lot more than what people might think. Because broken worship isn't just a title. I think it really explains that you don't have to be from any kind of background to have faith in God or even have Christian values. Because I think there's a stigma attached that if you're not, from a certain background or you've had wrongs in your life or you've struggled, that you don't belong in that community. I don't feel like that's right. I think everybody should have their shot to have faith in God, and God will not turn anybody away.
Amen, man. I love that. I truly do. Okay. The second question I have for you. Would you agree that building a relationship with someone is the greatest way to show them love?
Easily. I mean, without a relationship with somebody, I mean, your correlation with the other person is almost pointless, you know? You need to be able to trust, you need to be able to be transparent, you need to be able to rely on each other, and building a foundation of a relationship is so important to be able to sustain any kind of relationship.
True that, man. I love that. Okay, next question. How has Christianity or church may have deterred you in any way, shape, or form from seeking to follow Christ?
It's hard to say if the church ever really did, because I didn't mind my time in church when I used to go. But my issue was, when they tell you to turn around and shake hands, or you're having like a coffee social or something like that, there's just something about it that just doesn't feel real. I think something like this podcast or the stuff that you're doing creates a more real experience where you're just meeting as people, no matter what kind of background or interests or anything like that. I feel like when you go to a church, you have to present yourself a different way. I feel like in a church setting, you get judged quite a bit by your peers that are there. And I feel like a lot of the community standard is that, if you don't have these certain values or you don't have these certain experiences, that you just don't fit in the church setting. And I've felt at times that if my beliefs were different, that I was almost... I was not well suited, for a Christian setting, I guess.
Yeah, I've had positive and negative experiences. Some of my favorite times were playing dodgeball or jamming music, eating, doing Fear Factor, eating weird food there, and just hanging out with people, sharing interests with some. But there sure is a lot of church politics and judgment, and it's such a deterrent for people, and I hate it.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I felt that way too. Where if it's just somewhere where you don't feel like you fit in, because I remember I used to wear you remember the clothes I wore in high school. I could not walk into a church with trip pants. And if I walked in with any kind of a band t-shirt, it was just like, who's this kid? He doesn't belong here, It's not a place that I was just welcome with open arms. But I've also met a lot of Christians outside of church, such as yourself, and I've been welcomed with open arms. Even your mom has been really nice to me when I've been over there. And there's just, my mom is really warm and inviting as well. There's a lot of people that still have those traditional values that are almost at the core of what a God-worshiping Christian should be,
For sure, man, for sure. Okay, we got a couple more for you. Knowing me, has there been any changes of my passion or understanding from my goals from Rebuild the Fallen to Broken Worship?
This is rhetorical, right? Because, and I know you've always been, a Christian growing up in the household you grew up in, obviously. But you've always clung to those values, and you've done everything you can to let people know that there's so much joy and grace in having a relationship with God. And you've also went to great lengths, such as this podcast, or your poetry books that I read personally. And then the book I'm going to be getting into now, where you just explain that the world of Christianity is not what people think it is. There's ways that it's portrayed, but God accepts all. It doesn't matter who you are, where you've been, and I think you really reflect a lot of that in your material. But I have not seen you slow down once. You put a lot of money into Rebuild the Fallen when we were doing that. And you put a lot of time and money into these books. You even had times where you were going to Barnes and Noble and places like that, Starbucks or something like that, just to sit down and write. You had days where you were just sitting down and writing material just to get these books finished. So no way, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that for sure. Okay, I have one more, and this is kind of a fun one for you. I know I have definitely a lot of memories with this. What is your favorite Rebuild the Fallen memory?
I thought about this, and I know that we talked about this a couple times, just putting all this together. But I did like moving around the band, like we talked about before. It was really cool playing back to back. I know our last endeavor got to play with Rebuild the Fallen. But I have to say, now that I think about it, my favorite memory was our EP release. Our EP release went so freaking well, man. It was in a nice, intimate, warm setting. We still have that really cool picture that you put in that calendar, or it was like a scrapbook kind of thing. where I had a picture of everybody that was there with us, and it was just, that EP release went so incredibly well. Dude, I'll never forget it.
That was a once in a lifetime experience, having people there cheering for us. We were the main event, and just that feeling where before we got on stage and cheering for us.
And we didn't really have much for hiccups either.
No.
I mean, it went so smooth.
We had a different drummer at the time, Zach Saltmarsh.
Yeah, and he did really well.
He did really well.
He did awesome.
And I just, every show I went, I remember this timid, like, shy Zach Mitchell is out there fucking screaming his heart out.
Yeah, people came to the show and they're like, who's this guy? You know, I haven't met this guy before.
Oh, dude, some of the best times for sure. Well, thank you, Taylor, for such an awesome interview and for being on the first Broken Worship podcast.
I am so happy to be here. I'm glad I got to help you set this up, and I had a good time doing it. Not a big fan of the Chromebook, but I will tell you, I'm glad everything went flawless, and it seems like it's working really well. So,
well, and if Luke ever hears this, thank you, Luke, for this Chromebook. It's really helped. I may eventually upgrade, but this was free and it's doing its job. So
this Chromebook was endorsed by Luke.
Endorsed by Luke. Yeah, for sure. So anyways, I thank you. And if anyone is interested in knowing more about the Broken Worship Ministry, be sure to follow me on social media. Follow this podcast. Check out my website. These will all be on the descriptions below. Soon I will be able to announce another big and exciting event for Broken Worship. Thanks for everyone who tuned into this podcast. Here in the Broken Worship community, we remember, even in our brokenness, we have a reason to worship. Thank you and God bless.